Josue, what's going on, my friend?
Not much. How you doing?
Good. Speak up a little bit just so we could
Yeah, no worries.
everyone can hear you good. Josue Gonzalez from Project Step, right?
Project Step. Yep.
And you're the
STEP.
And you're the what? Executive
Director.
Executive
Yeah.
Director?
Yeah.
All right. So my friend Liam said I need to talk to you. He said you have an interesting story.
Liam says hi.
Liam's the man.
He's the best. He's
Is
absolutely the best.
Is he doing good?
He's doing great.
Yeah?
He's looking great as always. Doing great. No, he's killing it. They have their own PR firm. I'm sure you're aware of that. They started, I think, a year or two ago. They're doing great stuff. He's been amazing to work with. Incredible connections. Just incredibly kind person. Yeah, really, really great.
Yeah, he's a good dude. And it's funny because when I had him in here, he was talking about, switching schedules because the schedule of doing mornings and all that stuff was crazy. And I'm literally like, I understand, man. He and our schedules were like basically the same thing. And to find somebody that shares that craziness, I mean, there's a lot of people that do, but morning TV and morning radio people, it's crazy. It's not natural.
Yeah, you have to go to bed at like 6 p.m.?
Some people that I know go to bed at 6. I get into bed between 6:30 and 7, and I want to be out on either side of 7:30 because I get up at 2 o'clock. And that's another thing too. Some people, I get up at 2 in the morning. Some people get up at 3, maybe 4. Some people get up at like 1 in the morning. Like the TV people, they got to do extra early because they get up and do makeup and all that stuff.
Right.
I don't. Do
Are you still in that schedule?
Yeah, I get up at 2 in the morning. Yeah.
Every day?
Not counting week, but even on the weekends, I'm getting up at anywhere between 5 and 6, probably the latest.
Wow.
Yeah, just because I like to work out and get all that stuff out of the way before the kids get up, and then the weekends they have all their. Do you have kids?
I don't. No. I have no excuses.
Yeah, so you're good, man. You're good. You have a wife, a girlfriend?
A girlfriend, yeah, fiance, yeah.
Okay, you guys live together?
We do, yeah.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
Is she an early bird?
No, she's not. No, I'm the early bird. But I mean, the earliest I get up is like 7 or 6:45 or something like that. Yeah.
What's it like?
I envy. Sorry, I envy. I don't envy. I strive to be on your type of schedule. I want to be able to get up earlier and earlier. Everything got screwed up with the time change, and I was in Puerto Rico for the holidays, and then like they're an hour or later, and so I just haven't been able to get back into like I was inching closer to getting to like 6:30, and then hopefully closer to 6. But I want to do the same thing you're saying, like get all of me, like the stuff that I need to do to become a better person, and like get myself to be whole, out of the way. Because if it's never gonna get done, like I'll never go to the gym. I haven't gone to the gym in like 2 months because it got cold. I was like, well, I'm not gonna wake up. It got dark.
No, you gotta make it just non-negotiable. One thing I'm good at is there's a lot of things I'm not good at. I don't have any like particular talents. You know how some people you're just like, wow, they're really talented. If you sat me down and said, what are you good at? I'd be like, I have no idea. But I'm very disciplined. So I get up and if my alarm goes off, I usually wake up before my alarm. And if I do that thing where I wake up anywhere single digits, if it's single digits before my alarm goes off, I don't lay back down and go, let me get 9 more minutes. 8 more. I'm just like, whatever, fuck it, get up.
Yeah.
So, but if I make it to my alarm, the second it goes off, I just shoot up, shut it off, get out of bed and start moving. I don't give myself any leeway to possibly fall back asleep or snooze. And it sucks because the next thing you're going to say, well, you've been doing it for a while. You're used to it. People say that all the time. I'm like, no, it sucks. You don't get used to it. I question my existence. I question my existence 3 to 4 days a week. I call myself an idiot 3 to 4 days a week. I'm like, why do you do this? Just sleep a little extra. But when I'm done, every time I'm done working out and stuff, I'm like, you know what? I'm good. I feel like I accomplished a lot more before people even got out of bed.
Yeah. So. I mean, and I mean, speaking from my experience, like as soon as you don't do that a few times, then you're like, wait a second.
Mm-hmm.
Then you actually start to realize like, oh, I've been putting in all these hours, and like there's a reason why subconsciously like you still you're doing that, right? Like, it's good for you. That's what you need to be doing. And as soon as you don't do it, it feels so wrong.
Yeah.
It feels so wrong. So, yeah. Do you have like all of your stuff? Do you set, this is like helpful for me. So
Yeah.
do you set everything up like to like be idiot proof when you wake up? Like
100%.
the clothes are here, the shoes are there, the socks are there, the jacket's there, like boom, boom. You just kind of,
Well,
the toothbrush is there.
I don't go to the gym. I don't go to a gym. I have probably the thing that we've spent the most money on in our house is the gym that we have in our basement.
That's
like,
awesome.
Yeah, it looks like you ever stay at a hotel and you look at the gyms in a hotel? Okay, some of them suck.
Right.
But some of them you're like, all right, you know what? I can make this work. I would say, and then some of them are spectacular. This is not spectacular, but it doesn't suck. Like we have, actually, it's more towards spectacular than sucks. Now that I think about it, because we have like that dumbbell set up to 50 pounds. We have kettlebells. We have a weight bench, a squat rack. I have my wife. She saw, the cable systems.
Yeah.
She was like, let's get one of those. And I'm like,
It's like from the 90s, right?
yo, but it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. And she said, let's get one of those. And I said, but we're kind of running out of space. And we had like a storage room right next to the gym. And she said, well, we can store the stuff in the attic, knock down the wall, have more space, put it up. And I was like, let's do it. So we have one of those now.
Wow.
We have a Peloton tread. We have a Peloton bike. We have a pull-up bar. We have dip bar. So I have the setup. So I literally get up. My routine is get up, brush my teeth. And it's funny the thing you said about clothes, because on the weekends, because my kids might get up, sometimes my mother stays over, so she might be up. On the weekends, I'll throw on a pair of shorts, maybe a t-shirt. During the week, I'm working out of my underwear and socks.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
I just get up, I go down there, and I get it in with no. So like, it's funny because there are times that we do go to the gym, or like on the weekends, like I said, if I go down there and I throw on some shorts and a t-shirt, I almost feel like I got all this extra. Probably like an Olympic swimmer when they wear like regular skin,
Right.
swim trunks instead of like the little Speedos. It's like, oh, I feel like this is slowing me down. So now you can picture that, me working out my.
Does your wife go with you as well? Do you both get up, or is it?
She's crazy disciplined too. So what she does, because she's a real estate attorney, and we have the kids, 2 young kids and everything. So she's like, I want to get it in before the kids get up. So we almost do like a tag. Like as I'm coming up and getting ready to shower, she's in the bathroom brushing her teeth and getting ready to go down to work out, so she can do all the stuff before the kids get up too. So she's unbelievably disciplined too.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Good
So
for you
even
guys.
though she works, like a full day, she's still going to bed early.
That's
like
amazing.
myself. Yeah.
Yeah. Good for you guys.
Yeah, we have a good deal. But yeah, so I do all that. And I don't know, I just think a morning routine is it's such what's your morning routine like? Let's hear it. I'm gonna fix it. No, not ideally. What is it for real?
Like what I was doing before it got cold was, I would get up. I had all my gym clothes set out, so I'd get up, just
smart,
put the clothes on, brush my teeth, and then just drive to the gym.
Yep. And when you were at the gym, did you already know what you were gonna do, or
for the most part? Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I have, and I need to be better about like the specifics, but I have like a general, like I'm doing some sort of like 20 to 25 minutes of cardio. Either I usually do like a treadmill or elliptical, and then after that I do some sort of weights, whether it be a combination of like, okay, today it's like back and shoulders, or today is biceps and triceps and shoulders, or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I end with like an ab, sort of like a core ab routine of sorts, and then stretch.
Okay.
So it usually takes me like an hour-ish to kind of get all that in. And so I do that, come back, journal, even like just a page, like just page, and then go over like the priorities for the day, make sure like calendar, everything is kind of squared away. I'm learning Greek because my fiance is half Greek.
Okay.
So I already know more Greek than she does. But I like languages. I'm bilingual. I speak Spanish as well. So for me, it's I think the learning language muscle is already built. So I do a little bit of that, and then I try to read 10 pages of a book. So I try to get all of that in the morning. Like that's my ideal, and like so I'm striving to just make sure I can carve out enough time to do all that. It doesn't really take actually that long. I think like maybe 2 hours. If I had 2 hours, I could do all of that and then some.
That's fantastic. You said that because when I come in, I'll get in here to the location, the radio station, before anybody else on the show, but I disappear into another studio, and I'm literally the last person to walk into the studio before the show starts because, just like you, I journal, I meditate though too. I try and get about 10 minutes of reading in, things like that. So, and all that stuff, it's hard to explain unless you do it. It's hard to explain to somebody the benefit of all that.
Right.
Consistently,
right?
To do that stuff.
I read this book, Atomic Habits.
I love it.
It's like a big one, right?
Yeah.
And so, Atomic Habits and the Power of Habit, which he cites in that book, and he talks. I mean, basically, that's what got me into understanding like how this all works. It's like, you don't just like wake up and be like, I'm just going to start, doing. I'm going to become this new person tomorrow, right? That's not how it works. You become what you end up collectively doing over a long period of time, right? And so the issue is actually just putting those things in place.
Yeah.
And like I said earlier, like, oh yeah, if I miss a few days at the gym, then you realize like, oh, I used to be a person who goes to the gym.
Yeah.
But you're not thinking about it in the morning. You're like, oh God, I hate my life. Like, I have to go to the gym. But it's like, oh yeah, over like a year doing that, it's like, oh, I'm a person who goes to the gym.
Yep.
I'm a person who's in shape.
Yeah.
I'm a person who cares about my body, right? And so it's just that sort of little by little, even like 10 pages, 10 minutes or something like that, or 1 page of journaling. Oh, I'm someone who journals.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So
that's funny because that's why I asked you about if you already knew what you were going to do when you went to the gym, because I'll have friends who they go to the gym and do all that and they're still like, yeah, but I don't have time for this. I don't have time for that. And then you start going into like the micro habits in the habit. So I'll say to them, I go, well, when you go to the, first thing, do you have your stuff laid out if you're going to go to the gym? No, but it's easy for me to go to my closet and grab. No. You know what's easier?
You already failed.
Yeah. You know what's easier? Lay it out the night before, throw it next to the bed. Now you just get up and throw it on. That's going to save you time. When you go to the gym, do you know what you're going to do? No, for the most part, I know I'm going to. No. You want to save time? Don't just say, hey, I'm going to work on my back tomorrow. Go, I'm going to do these exercises, this many sets. Now you're saving time there. Have your time. When you allot your time, I do a lot of like almost like backwards time management. Oh, I got to be done by this time. Okay, so if I'm going to start at this time, be done by this time, how do I break stuff down? So, how long are you going to be at the gym for? Probably an hour or so. No. Know when you're going to leave. That way and if you're somebody who I believe, I think stretching and all that stuff is important. All right, you're going to be there. Allot your time for showing up and throwing your crap in your locker or whatever. That's going to take time out of that hour. Get in there, get your workout in, be done by this time so you can stretch by this time, so you can be done stretching by this time so you can go back to your locker and do what you got to do before you get out of there. It's all little micro habits
right
within the habit, I think that
actually make it happen.
Yes. And doing that like consistently.
Right.
Then you just kind of, and like you said, you don't throw it all in at once. You
right.
kind of, as you're going along, you kind of figure it out, but then it becomes.
It doesn't feel good.
It definitely doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good. If it felt
it's
good,
like, wait, I thought going to the gym was like I'm supposed to like, oh yeah. It's like no, that's not how it works.
If it felt good, everybody would be doing it. It really, if everything, none of this feels good, to be honest. The results feel good.
The results, yeah, but it's like a past thing. It's like reflecting on this year of doing all these things. Like, oh wow, I ended up reading like 20 books, and I ended up like journaling through like several hundred pages, and reflecting on a regular basis. But it sucks in the moment.
Yeah,
it's like do this, and it's okay, just but. You got to do it. So you've inspired me. I have to get back on the habit now.
Oh, now when you journal, do you go back and read what you wrote or?
No.
Okay.
What I do it's if I complete a journal book, like if I do the last page, like I might just kind of glance through before starting a new one, just kind of like, hey, if there are any like patterns of things, any like loops that I get stuck in that like I haven't been addressing.
Yeah.
And that's to me the bigger issue is like I should review more periodically, because like I've definitely noticed in a few journal books I'm like I keep complaining about the same thing like every several weeks, and like I'm not actually doing anything about it, right? So if I can catch that early, that'd probably be better. But yeah, how about you?
Not too. I'll do the I'll tell you right now because it's an app on my phone. 5-minute journal. And what you do is, it's very specific. So you write down 3 things you're grateful for. Could be more than 3. Minimum, 3. You could write 4 or 5, whatever. And then you do basically things you want to, what will I do to make today great? So you make, you do a list for that too. And then later, you have your list of highlights of the day, and basically kind of like an opportunity. What did I learn today type of situation. So at the end of the day, like when I'm writing the highlights of the day or whatever, I'll go back and look to see if like it matches up with what I wanted to accomplish and stuff like that. But going back like every now and then, I just might open up like a random day and see what it says. But even if you don't go back and read it, I think just the habit of journaling is a huge thing,
Yeah, I don't have it structured that way. That would be helpful. There's this book, I forget what it's called. Something about like living like an artist or something like that. I forget the name. All my artist friends are gonna murder me, but where they say, the first thing you should do when you wake up is write anything that's like flowing out of your brain, and just write it all down. I think it's like at least a page or 2 pages or something like that. And it doesn't even have to make necessarily sense. Like you don't have to like, craft a narrative necessarily. It's just like, feeling sleepy, head hurts, thinking about breakfast, blah 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 blah, and then like at some point it actually starts making sense. Like, but like it's basically a way to like clean out your subconscious. Like because you accumulate all these things like while you're sleeping, and then it's sort of like a release valve almost, to be able to clear your head for the day. And so I don't do that, but that's why I haven't like structured it that way. But I mean, I think structuring it actually makes a lot more sense, because it's more practical, right? It's helpful to kind of set the intentions for the day. So,
well, yeah, I mean, the reason I structure it is just because I know it gives me kind of like an end point, because I know if I like that idea of just like going down and writing down just random thoughts, but knowing myself, I'd have to give myself, I'd be like, all right, give yourself like a page of random thoughts, because I could just keep going and going and going. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's why you only do a page, because I'm like, this is, and sometimes it's actually hard to even do a page, because I'm like, I'm just like writing like things I need to do today.
Yeah.
Like I'm just worried about, like I'm anxious about this one thing that I have to get done, and I'm just like writing about that, and that's not necessarily helpful either. I'm just stewing in it versus getting it done. So,
but that's like meditation almost. Meditation is almost like it's what it is. It's like the equivalent of like charging your phone. So it's like I think a lot of people, you probably love it. I think a lot of people think meditation is clear your head, don't think of anything. If you're telling yourself not to think of anything, you're thinking of not thinking of anything. You're never not thinking, but it's more letting thoughts come and go, whatever they are. So then when you're done, it's like you washed the stuff away. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Walk me through like when you meditate, like how do you approach it then? Like what do you try to do? Like what's your goal with it?
So the way I do it is transcend. There's different versions of meditation. I do transcendental meditation, where you get a mantra and you just kind of repeat that mantra in your head. And as you're repeating that mantra, you're, depending on the day, you're getting thoughts coming in and out, and it's almost like staying focused on repeating that mantra, but at the same time letting the thoughts come and go. But you're kind of staying. I'm trying to almost like when you're driving to somewhere, things pop out or whatever, but it's not gonna you don't let it derail you and stop you from getting to the destination. Almost. So it's like, all right, red light, let me stop, wait till the light turns green, continue driving, continue with the mantra or whatever. And some days, just like when you're driving to work, some days you get there a little bit smoother and not much stuff gets in your way. And other days you might have a million things, a lot of traffic, an accident. So it's like a bunch of thoughts, anxious thoughts or whatever, or thinking about something about that day, thinking about something in the future, doing that thing where you're catastrophizing life. You know, what if me and my fiance break up for some reason? We had a fight yesterday. But even though you're not resolving whatever the issue is, again, just like journaling, just getting it out there, I think, is a huge benefit. Like sometimes you finish a session and you're almost, I do it for 20 minutes. Sometimes you finish and you go, man, I wish I had more time. Other times you finish and you're like, that was perfect. Other times I've fallen asleep meditating. So I set my alarm because I'm like, I don't know how this is going to go. But it's a different version of journey. Like I said, at the best I could describe it as like recharging your phone. You literally, it's the best way to get energy without using energy.
Right.
Does that make?
What's an example of a mantra that you use?
I mean, if you look it up online, there's like a bunch of ones. It's weird. So when I learned it, this is so stupid. But when I learned it, like I went to a transcendental meditation center, and they were, and they're, at least the gentleman who taught me it was like, I'm going to tell you the mantra. It's like mine's a 2-syllable word that's not even a word. And he said, but you can't tell anybody what your mantra is specifically. And I was like, okay. I'm going to hold on to this forever. And then I went online and looked, and there's like a list of mantras, including mine. So it's not like a big, crazy, but at the time when he taught me that, I was like, oh, wow, this will only work if I never repeat this word out loud to another human being. And for some reason, I still haven't done it. My wife tried to get out of me one time, and I was like, I can't tell you what mine is. I'm sorry. You have to get your own. But you don't need to go to a TM center to learn it. Like, again, go online. It'll teach you. But there's different there's meditation apps. There's some where they waterfall sounds. There's some where somebody is literally talking to you and guiding you through. Just like exercise, I think as long as you're doing it, I'm not going to say that one's better than the other.
Sure.
As long as you're doing it, I think
just the consistency.
Just the consistency.
Yeah. Is it so? Do you say that word over and over again, like out loud, or is it just in your mind?
In my mind, I'm repeating it.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's, again, depending on the day. Sometimes it's more challenging. Sometimes there's so many things happening that you're almost like, well, let me focus here. And other times it's just like, sometimes when you're driving to work and you're like, man, that was a nice, easy ride. That was cool. I almost want to get in the car and do it again. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's hard to explain. But again, if you do it consistently, because I think just like anything else, you do it. And I think Atomic Habits might have talked about, I forget, or maybe it was another book, but sometimes people do something once and go, well, that didn't work. I'm not going to do it anymore. And it's, what out there? Name me one thing out there that will fix whatever issues you've been having for 10, 20 years of your life in one session. Has anybody ever gone to a therapist for one session and been like, don't need this anymore? Has anybody ever done one workout and been like, oh my God, I lost 30 pounds? Has anybody ever eaten one nutritious meal and gone, wow, all those years of eating crap, I'm healthy all of a sudden? It takes, time, just like everything else.
Yeah. I think it was Charles Duhigg in the Power of Habit book, where I think he says, you have to think about your actions as sort of paving grooves into your neurons. And so the more actions you take that you want to be taking creates more permanence on your neurons. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of like the like real scientific part of it, right? It's just like a vote for something that you want to be doing, a vote for a good habit is basically like training your brain to like, oh yeah, that's the good thing. Okay, that's the good thing. That's the good thing. That's a good thing. So that way, like when you don't do it, your brain's like, wait, we're supposed to do the good thing, right?
Yeah.
But again, it just like you said, it's like it's just a matter of like the more votes, the more sort of grooves that you pave into those habits that you want to be doing, the more they actually, it becomes easier for your body to be able to be like, oh yeah, we're doing that now.
Right.
Versus like when you start,
Yeah.
So.
And just like serial killers, right? Killing that 10th victim is a lot easier than killing that first.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. I was a big fan of Dexter. And I think they had like flashbacks when he was like, younger or whatever. And like he making all these mistakes. And then, by the time the show happens, he's kind of got it down to a science.
Yeah. It's like that with everything. What other books do you like reading?
During the pandemic, like everyone, I had a lot of time to kind of think about stuff because I wasn't doing it. I was furloughed for a bit and just had more. There wasn't a lot to do, so I was thinking about ways to self-improve, and one of them was reading. I think I had read one book from 2011 to 2019 or 2020. And it wasn't on purpose. It was just like, oh, I guess I didn't really like think to pick anything up. So I think during the pandemic, a lot of like political stuff was happening, and a lot of sort of existential, sort of humankind questions were kind of arising. And so I've always loved politics and loved history, and so I was basically like, oh, I should probably like learn more about how we even got to where we are as a country and as a society. So I started reading a bunch of presidential biographies. To kind of just piece together like what's been the evolution of like all of this stuff and how seeing it through their lens, right, of approaching problems and solving those problems. And so I read a bunch of presidential biographies. I started with Woodrow Wilson, and then basically stopped at Nixon, which is interesting because I have Gerald Ford and Carter's, and like now I wish I kind of would have. I mean, I still have them, so I'll tackle them sooner rather than later. But so I did that and kind of get an understanding. I have a few others that from earlier presidencies that I haven't gone to, but after that, took a little bit of a pause in 22, and then kind of restarted last year. But this time with self-improvement books. So I started with. My new job at Project Step, new job, it's not new anymore, in February 22. And it's my first executive director position. And so I knew that there was just like a lot that I needed to learn in terms of leadership, in terms of running an organization, fundraising, a lot of this stuff that I come from a programmatic background. Like I started as a music teacher and more on the just programs and students and education and side of things. And so I was like, I didn't get an MBA. I didn't study nonprofit management or anything like that. So I was like, I need to learn. And, so I've just been researching a bunch of books and been trying to just go through as many as I can. So to answer your question directly now, a bunch of books like, Good to Great, John Maxwell's 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, Today Matters by John Maxwell, a really good book. Similar to, I think it's a good companion to Atomic Habits, because he kind of talks about like how he prioritizes every day, and kind of like every day is sacred, right? Like every day is like actually the most important day of your life. Like
100%.
Today, that's why it's like today matters.
Yeah.
Because tomorrow hasn't happened, and yesterday already happened. Like,
right.
The now is the most important thing, and how to plan for that. A few other ones really interesting. The E-Myth, which is really, really cool. That one was really helpful in understanding, especially for like not small business folks, where it's like, if you're the head of the small business, right, you're probably consumed with like just putting out fires. So you're working in the business. And, they kind of talk about like successful companies where, the founder or the business leader is working on the business versus in the business, right? And so like how to get from that point to that point, how to structure things, how to delegate, how to create structures to have things working without you needing to be there.
Yes.
And I've always thought about that in such a negative way of like, well, the boss doesn't do any of this stuff, right, or whatever. And once I read that book, I kind of understood. Like, I was actually thinking about this analogy recently. It's sort of like a business or a nonprofit organization. They're living entities, right? Depending on lots of different systems and interlocking parts. The more I think about it, it's kind of like the human body, right? And so your brain is essentially the bot, like the business leader, the manager, the supervisor, the CEO or whatever. Your brain shouldn't have to be involved in like making sure that you're breathing correctly. Right?
Right.
Your brain shouldn't have to be involved in like, I need to walk to the bathroom. Your brain shouldn't have to be, you know what I mean? Like, and being like, this is how I'm supposed to eat today. I'm going to chew now. Like, your brain trains your body to start to do those things. And once they can do them independently, your brain starts to focus on bigger and better things.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how I've thought, like recently kind of put that all together in my own mind of like, the more I can get the body doing things independently, the more I can think about what other things that are good for the body or what other goals that we can achieve, and then teach the body to do those things. And so that's kind of how I've approached it. But E-Myth, it's really good. It's a short book too.
E-Myth.
Yeah.
I'm going to write that down. I love book recommendations.
And then the most recent one I just started was Getting Things Done by David Allen.
Okay.
Huge game changer. That one is really cool. It talks about basically how you can create systems of just managing information for yourself in terms of like, he talks about like a lot of us have open loops in our lives.
Yeah.
So, if your mind starts drifting, it might be like, oh, I still have to get the tire fixed. If your mind starts shifting, I still have to send that one email. If your mind, all those things like constantly, right? There's all these open loops in our subconscious. And it's a result of like not creating a system where there's a reliable place to put all that information, right? So we just think, oh, well, I'll just remember it. It's fine. It's like, no, it's actually not fine because that all those open loops compound and create like underlying stress and underlying like a constant level of like low or high stress, because your subconscious is trying to fix those problems, but you're not able to do it. And so creating a system where any information you're intaking and anything that like you need to resolve is put into specific categories. Like he's like, anything that takes more than one action to be completed is a project, right? So like think about all of the projects in your life and having a list of those.
Yeah.
And then creating a system where you're reviewing that list of projects on a periodic basis. So then from that list of projects, you're saying, okay, well, in order to get the tire fixed, I need to make an appointment. Okay, so my to-do list today is call the car place.
Right.
So you're deriving your to-do list from the stuff that you've already listed. And then your to-do list is, again, like dependent on like what you're taking in. So for example, he said like anything that takes less than 2 minutes, do it immediately. If you can't do it in 2 minutes, then think about if you can delegate that, or if it needs to be filed as like part of a larger project, and if there's other action items as a result. And so, but it's all just documenting all this stuff. So as soon as you get something in, have a trusted place where you're putting all that information, and then have a trusted time daily to be able to sort those things.
Yeah.
That way you're not just holding on to random pieces of information all the time. And that like basically he equates it to like a computer, right? Like the random access memory, RAM, right? It's like if you have 100 tabs open on your on your browser, people like, oh, my computer's slow. It's like, well, you have 100 tabs open plus the video editor plus the right. It's the same thing. It's like closing all those things and really only have like dedicating your memory, your RAM memory, your computer memory to the things that you need to in the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's Getting Things Done?
Getting Things Done by David Allen. Yeah.
All right.
And
if you had to recommend just one book, what would it be? Like if you were like, okay, I'm going to gift for Christmas my favorite book to all my favorite people.
I mean, Atomic Habits was kind of a game changer for me.
Yeah.
I think Atomic Habits and Getting Things Done, just in my that's where I'm at personally. Like, I want more people to understand like how all of those things are so interlocked. Like the habit conversation we just had, and then the fact that like, you know, if you had a system like this, like you could actually do so many more things with your life.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that like, oh, it's not that I'm dumb or I'm not smart enough or like I'm not capable. It's just a systems thing. Oh, if I have systems that can organize all this stuff and take care of these things, I could do so much more with my life than I'm currently doing. And I never thought of it that way. So for me, those two for sure. What about you?
Probably Outliers, Malcolm Gladwell.
Oh, I haven't read that one.
I love that book. It's and it's funny because there's a section on musicians and stuff too. It's a lot about it's about a lot of stuff. I would say the main thing is the 10,000 hour rule, where it's 10,000 hours of practice that makes you an expert in whatever it is. But I mean, he breaks stuff down to a lot of people will see. I'm going to say sports because that's the quickest thing where someone's just like, that person's awesome. Like a LeBron James. And they're just like, well, he was just awesome his entire life. And, that's not true. No. LeBron James was born into this situation, which led him to do this, which led him to do this with this mindset because of the situation he was in, which led him to work and be where he is now. So it's not like he was just like one day picked up a basketball, was amazing, and they were like NBA. And it goes deep into even the connection of where you were born, when you were, like what year you were born, and okay, so there's the whole the stereotype where they say that all lawyers are Jewish or whatever. So he studied it, and back in I'm gonna say the 50s, the 40s, back in the day, Jewish lawyers would basically they weren't being they were kind of, let's just say that they were not the most powerful lawyers. And if they joined a firm, they would basically get like, okay, we're going to do the really important cases. You guys are going to get the crap cases, which at the time was things like companies, mergers, acquisitions, things of that nature. So now fast forward, that's all they've been doing for like 20, 30 years. Fast forward to about the 80s, when all that was happening was companies buying other companies, acquisitions, mergers and stuff. Well, who knows how to do that? All these guys who at the time, that was the crap work. Now that's the big work, and that's where they shot up to prominence and stuff. And then, I mean, it even broke down the whole, you know how people say Asians are amazing with numbers? Okay, well, when in English, when you count numbers, you say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, right? And then you say 11. What the hell's an 11? 12. What's a 12? 13. 14 kind of makes sense because it's 14, 15, and then 16, 17, 18, 19 kind of makes sense. So in the Asian language, when they count numbers, they count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Then it's not 11, 12, 13. It's 10 and 1, 10 and 2, 10 and 3, 10 and 4. When you get to 20, it's 2 10s. 21 is 2 10s and 1. So if you say to somebody, hey, what's 17 plus 13? They're like, 17 plus 13? Let's say 11. 17 plus 11, two random numbers. In what Asians, the way they get asked that question is, what's 10 and 1 and 10 and 7? Oh, 2 10s and 8. Do you know what I'm saying? It's just easier almost to verbalize without even doing the math in your head. So they're learning math differently. I don't know. Math is different now for little kids. Maybe they're learning it because my kids will come to me with the way that they learn math now, and it's so different than the way I learned it. I don't know if it's easier for them. I look at it and I'm like, what are you doing? But so I don't know if they figured out that the way that we learn math in English and stuff is a little different. But anyway, like there's that. Plus, I think it was in China, wherever they had rice paddies. Maybe not. Maybe I forget. I haven't read the book in a while. But another reason is they would have a little plot of land. You had a poor family with a real small plot of land for them to grow their rice paddies. So they had to figure out the most efficient way to get the most rice. So just part of their lifestyle was math and things of that nature. So you're growing up with that, and the way you're learning math, now you're awesome at math.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then it broke down for hockey. Hockey players in Canada, they realized that kids born in, I think, the first 3 or 4 months of the year make it to the NHL more than kids born later in the year. The reason is because when you're playing sports, like you could both be like around, there's an age about maybe like 8-ish around there, 7, 8, where you could have two boys the same age, but if one boy was born in February and one boy was born in October, for some reason that 8-year-old born in February seems like he's a few years older. It's just like there's a certain year of development where there's a pretty big gap in a small age group. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So now these kids are playing hockey, and the hockey coach is naturally going to play the kid who's a little better more. So now, even though they're both 8 years old, that 8-year-old born in February, already at the age of 8, he's starting to get more playing time than this other kid, which is going to compound over the years to eventually him getting to the hockey teams, I'm going to say AAU, whatever they have, the club hockey teams up there. He's going to get onto the better ones, the bigger ones, just get more playing time, and eventually that's going to, go into them getting into the NHL. So if they broke down, I forget what it was, but it was through the months of like January and March or April was ridiculous. Then the next few months was a few, and then the last few months of the year, the percentage of ones that were in the NHL was super low.
Wow.
Yeah. The book is amazing. I mean, all his stuff. I love that Malcolm Gladwell guy. He has a lot of amazing books.
So Outliers is
Outliers
the
is one
of all of them that you would recommend.
Outliers is the one out of all of them I'd probably recommend first, but I'd say, I mean, he has the Tipping Point,
David and Goliath,
what the dog saw. He just did the Tipping Point 25th anniversary book, which was also phenomenal. I love that dude.
Wasn't there like one that was maybe it was called Blink or it was
yeah, Blink. Was that a Malcolm Gladwell book?
Maybe not. It sounds like the subject matter sounds.
I think that Blink was Malcolm Gladwell. Let me see.
Like it was basically about our natural instincts of like observing something in the moment and like making snap decisions.
Yep, Malcolm Gladwell also.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, one of my teachers recommended that one. She said she used this principle when she bought her house.
Really?
She had been house shopping, and then she saw her house.
Yeah.
And like she had like that feeling in the moment, that sort of instinctual feeling like this is it, even though she hadn't like barely even walked in it.
Yeah.
And sort of trusting that. So yeah.
Yeah. That's a great. I love that guy. I'm trying to think of what other books. I'd probably just go with a list of his books first, and then from there work out into Atomic Habits and things like that.
Yeah.
So, but speaking of the music thing, he talks about in Outliers. I think he was talking about violin players, and he broke down the ones who practiced, let's say like an hour, a couple days a week. They ended up, if they got into the business, a lot of them would become more working in schools and things of that nature versus the ones who would practice multiple hours, multiple days a week. Those are the ones that went to like the orchestras and things like that, just because, again, the 10,000 hour rule.
Right.
They reached it before the other ones, or if the other ones even reached it at all. So you are a cellist?
Yeah.
Cellist. Okay. At what point did you start doing that?
Very young.
Yeah. Who got you into it?
So I have two older sisters, and both of them were already studying violin by the time I was born, and they were, studying violin. So naturally, they put me in violin lessons too. And I did that for about a year. I was 4 years old, and then when I was 5, we were in a school that had an orchestra, and I hadn't really seen the orchestra before. And then I noticed that there were these instruments where you could sit down and play. Usually, when you learn beginning violin, you stand when you play.
Yeah.
And it's about posture and relaxing your shoulders and doing all that kind of stuff. And I just hated standing for like long periods of time. And then I saw this instrument. I was like, oh, you could sit down and play an instrument? I was like, all right. After the semester's done, I'm done with this. I want that one. And my parents are like, okay, sure. Funny enough, if you meet other cellists in your life, a lot of them will have the exact same story. So I'm not an outlier on that in that sense.
So a cellist is a lazy violinist? Basically?
100%. 100%.
So were your parents musicians too?
No. Yeah, we didn't have any professional musicians in either side of our family. But both sides of our family, they're from Puerto Rico, and I think Latino cultures in general really revere music and music making, and they wish that they had the opportunity to be able to learn an instrument when they never got that. And so when they saw that we had these opportunities, they were like, they wanted to just feed us, and we loved it and we excelled at it, and so they just kind of went with it. So
at the age of 4, you were doing the cello, and it was like you were like, "This is it."
I was like, "Yeah, this is great." And so so I've been playing since I was playing cello since I was 5. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And did you ever play sports or anything like that, or was it just straight music?
The sports, unfortunately, I did for like fun a little bit here and there through school, but at the risk of hurting my hands and like injuring my arms, I just avoided it in some ways. So, which it's a little bit too bad. Like I really enjoyed volleyball. Volleyball is big in Puerto Rico. And basketball, I'm terrible at it. I'm absolutely horrendous. But yeah, those are sort of my favorite sports to play. Tennis a little bit as well.
Wow, so you were even thinking at that age, like, I don't want to mess with my hands?
Yeah, I mean, my sister, she got in a bike accident. It was a total freak accident. There was like these grates at the bottom of a hill.
Yeah.
Like these like drainage grates, and so she just like she couldn't brake in time. And so she just kind of like went right into the grate and then like fell off and like fractured her hand. And so that was sort of like all right, no more bikes.
Wow.
The bikes are done. We're not riding bikes anymore. And then I was playing volleyball, and nothing to do with the ball. I literally I tripped backwards and like just, wanted to hold myself with my hand to like support my fall. And I just like ended up bending my wrist far back and fractured it. So, yeah, you have to be careful with your hands. And even my friends who are professional musicians today, like, I believe you can insure your hands as well, as like part of your business. It's a thing, but I think for me, the best part of like that whole sort of growing up and going to music classes and engaging in that was sort of the social aspect of it. And people don't really think about that too much, right? Like people know sports, and so it's like, oh yeah, the team and the team camaraderie and the team this and the team that. And in music, there's that ability to have that sort of team camaraderie if you're in an orchestra or if you're in a chamber group, which is just like a small group of folks, like anywhere between 2 and 8 people playing in a group together. And you can develop those things with them too, and it is exciting. And that was my favorite part about making music, was just the human connection that you could create. And it's also a great way to travel. I was talking to someone about this the other day. 95% of anywhere I've ever traveled was because of music. Yeah. It's a universal language, right? And so you can show up to any state, any country. They have concerts, people want to hear. There's great food in these different places that you can try. And it's about making those human connections. And especially as an artist, that's basically what you're tasked with, right? Like you're supposed to represent the human condition through your art form. So I'm a huge fan of the arts. Obviously, I've lived, breathed, and lived and breathed it for my entire life. And I feel very fortunate in the position I'm in now, where I see myself more on like as a coach.
Yeah.
I think of like a Doc Rivers, whereas like, yeah, he wasn't ever like the best player, but he kind of found his stride in supporting other players. I kind of feel that way myself. Like I don't really perform much these days anymore, but I've found like I get so much more joy out of creating programs, creating systems, creating avenues for people to excel through their music and take their talents to the next level.
Yeah. It's funny you said the thing about thinking about worrying about hurting your hands, because I'm going to steal that one from you, because I'm always trying to talk to my kids about chasing your passion, or whenever I just talk to anybody about it, and people will ask me all the time, well, how do I know when I found my passion? And what I say is, when you start, okay, so your average job will have a thing called overtime. And what's overtime? When you work extra and they pay you extra, and you're only working extra because they're paying you extra money. When you find your passion, you find yourself working extra on your own, not even when you're supposed to be working, not because anybody told you to, but because you just want to get better at it for yourself. But I'm going to use you start going, well, maybe I shouldn't do this, or maybe I should do more of this because it's going to help feed what it is that you love. So you thinking about, maybe I'm going to lay off of bikes and hard sports because I don't want to hurt my hands. I mean, right there, you have to be like, this kid has a passion for freaking playing the cello, you know?
Right.
I got my kids in like a lot of activities and stuff, and my wife and I talk about having them play some sort of instrument, because I think that it's hard to explain. Maybe you could explain it. So a sport like gymnastics, right? That will help you in basically any other sport you get into, because you're learning how to control your body, whether it's in space or you're getting stronger and things of that nature. A skill like swimming is going to help you in life, because it's a life skill that you need. So we have our kids in gymnastics. We had them in swimming lessons. I have my kids in jiu-jitsu, because self-defense is something that's going to help you in life, period. You just need that. And it also helps you with confidence, and it helps you with being a humble person, because there's always gonna be somebody who's better than you. The funny thing is, it could be somebody who has been training longer than you, but it could also be some kid who just started and he happens to be this tough kid, and it'll throw you off because you're like, I've been doing this for 6 months and this kid just started. He's better than me. So it teaches you that type of lesson. And I know music has that too. But you need to explain to me what it is, because I don't have my kids doing instruments, but I'd like to get them into some sort of music.
Yeah, no, those are really good analogies. I would say that there's a couple different layers to it, right? One is the fact that music can be like golf, and it also can be like basketball, right? The golf aspect is like, you're gonna have to spend a lot of time, like you were talking about outliers, like the 10,000 hours, a lot of time by yourself. And the best analogy I can say is it's basically a lot of time in front of the mirror, looking at all of your flaws all the time, getting to know every single flaw possible, and understanding how to break down, how to improve every single flaw, right? And so that's pretty brutal.
Yeah.
Right? Like if you're just literally, naked in front of a mirror being like, all right, well, it's going to be that, and it has to be this, and this has to be, but that's basically what musicians do. Like when they're practicing, they're like, okay, here are all the things I'm not good at yet. Here's the plan I have to develop over time to improve on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, X, Y, and Z, right? And so there's sort of there's that self-discipline, like a golfer, where it's like there's no one else except for you.
Yeah.
You have to figure out how to get from point A to point B and how to be the best you can be. So that's one layer to it, right? That self-discipline and self-reflection and sort of humbleness to understand that, like, I'm not perfect and I'm never going to be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
There's no perfect musician.
Right.
But how can I get to be the best I can be?
Yeah.
Then the other aspect of it is like the team aspect, right? It's sort of like almost the opposite. It's like, how can I leverage my strengths and contribute to this ensemble? And what are those strengths that I can market and I can share to make this other ensemble or this group even better than it is, right? And then that sort of team aspect. So there's also a sort of group element where people are critiquing each other and they're helping each other, and like a rising tide lifts all boats. So naturally there's going to be people that are better than you in that group as well. And how to figure out like your place in that moment, right? Like, how are you going to learn from this person who's so much better, who's sitting right next to you, right? And having the humility to understand that dynamic, right? And so I would say those are the two big pieces: is the self-discipline part, and then also the like how to work with others part. That it's you can't escape it, right? You have to be able to engage in both.
How often were you doing lessons as a kid?
Typically, lessons are once a week.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you'd practice on your own other days?
Yeah, so they'd basically be like, hey, okay, so we're going to learn these things. Next week, you need to make sure that you learn these next 3 lines of music, and I'm going to help you set yourself up to be able to learn those now. And then you kind of go and do that and come back. And then the older, the more advanced you get, the older you get, the more music they give you. So it's like, okay, next week you're going to have these 3 pages memorized. Next week you're going to have, this thing ready to be recorded for a competition. So it kind of just evolves over time like that.
And how's it work? Do you do competitions? Like, how do you, outside of just listening, how else do you gauge your progress versus other kids at your age group, I guess, or your level?
Yeah, your teacher is basically like your guru, like your kind of guide, and having a good teacher is really important for that reason. Like, they're sort of setting the general benchmarks for you and kind of giving you a lay of the land of where general standards are.
Yeah.
But again, that's also why it's important to not just do lessons and to do ensembles and to talk to other people and to learn from others, because they might have different teachers. They might be doing things slightly different. You might be exposed to different musicians that might have other opportunities. Be like, hey, you should try this other thing. That my teacher never told me about that other thing. Like, oh, maybe I'll try that. So it's a little bit of both as well. Yeah.
And so did you go to college or?
Yeah, I studied. I did my undergraduate and master's degrees in cello performance. I was in Cleveland, the Cleveland Institute of Music.
Cleveland Institute of Music.
And then as soon as I graduated, that's when I moved to Boston in 2011.
And did you come here with a job, or was it?
I came here with a job. Yeah, I was right out of college, and I was debating whether to continue to do schooling. A lot of people who kind of go that route to continue school after a master's end up doing a doctorate or some sort of like professional certificate or something like that. And so I was sort of at a breaking point, or not a breaking point, at an existential kind of moment of like, do I want to do another like 2 to 4 years of schooling? Or do I want to just like try to get a job and like live like a real person? And so I decided to try to live like a real person, because for me, it was like the point of being in school is to get a job. And so this a teaching job appeared in Boston at a conservatory lab charter school. It was like a part-time job, but it was something. And so, it was a sort of a sliding doors moment, as they say, where I went that direction. And I'm really, really happy I did. It ignited my passion even more for teaching and connecting with students and families, and that kind of set me on the trajectory that I ended up with.
What are the other options you have? So there's obviously teaching, and then playing in an orchestra.
So there's teaching. There's private teaching.
Yeah.
Which is basically like, you could have a space in like your basement, for example, where your gym is. You could basically create like a studio space where you basically you find put yourself out there, maybe connect with the local school or put flyers out, and people call you and you just set up appointments for, a student to come with their parent. I know folks who do that. They have like 20, 30, 35 students.
Oh, wow.
Just coming into their house throughout the week, and that's how they make their money. There's school teaching, obviously. So like that requires credentials. You have to get a Massachusetts teacher's license and pass a bunch of exams and stuff like that to be able to teach in schools. But, it's a guaranteed salary, right? It's very predictable in that sense, but not all schools have music programs, right? So, and some schools are better set up than others. If you're in a rich suburban school, you're getting all sorts of, incredible facilities and access to instruments. And then if you're not, you might get like some crummy violin that's been there for 100 years and has never been cleaned and sounds like crap. And, that's not very inspiring, right? So, and then besides the teaching route, you could go into the performance aspect of it, which I would probably divide it into individual soloing and ensemble work. So being a soloist basically means you're basically like creating your own persona, like you're basically like Adele or something, where I'm going to show up, I get contracted to show up to play at a stadium, or I get contracted to show up to play at a recital hall, and I play music that's just either me playing by myself, or it's usually like your instrument and a piano accompanist as well. And people are there to see you specifically. Sometimes you play in front of orchestras and you're like the featured guest, right? And so that's that. And then the ensemble work is playing in orchestras, like being a member of the Boston Symphony or being a member of a community orchestra or something like that, or being a member of a professional chamber group, or sort of touring ensemble where it's a smaller group of people and they have completely different types of music that they play, but you have a lot more creative control. Because you're in those situations, it's usually pretty democratic. Like you're kind of talking with your colleagues. Again, that's sort of more of like the basketball part of it, where like you're all kind of working together to figure out, what's the best way forward. Whereas orchestras have conductors, and you're basically like, you sit there and you just get told what to do all the time.
Right. Yeah. So, and you guys, Project Step is associated with the Boston Symphony Orchestra.
Yeah, so we have two major institutional partners, the Boston Symphony and New England Conservatory, and we have a bunch of other partnerships and collaborations with other institutions, but those are our two main ones. We operate on Saturdays out of the basement of Symphony Hall, and so the BSO is kind enough to give us space to be able to operate and have our classes there and have some of our offices there. And right now we're working a bit more on some more programmatic elements that we could do with them, including working with some of their musicians to do master classes or workshops, have some of our students play in their community concerts, stuff like that. So we're working on that currently with their new director of education, which is really exciting.
That's really good.
Yeah, and then access to like discounted tickets for our families as well, which they really love to be able to just go see a world-class orchestra for a very, very affordable price.
Yeah.
And then New England Conservatory is our other partner, where we're a small nonprofit. I like to say that we're a mile deep, an inch wide. So we serve students first grade through 12th grade.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of students who've been with us through that whole gamut, right? So we really see them grow up and until they go to college. And a lot of times, if they have siblings, their siblings also end up in the program. Sometimes like cousins of folks end up in the program as well. So the vibe is it's a very small family vibe, which is just, it's really wonderful when you see it in person. But the conversely, right, like we can't provide a comprehensive music education for them if we don't really have an orchestra for them to go to necessarily. We're just too small. We have 56 students right now in the program, and there are all sorts of different age groups, so there's no way we could put an orchestra together. And that's where NEC comes in, and we also have a few other youth orchestra partners. But a lot of our students end up participating in their orchestras. New England Conservatory's preparatory division has all these different ensembles that are by levels and age groups, and so our students can enroll into those ensembles free of cost to the families. And then last thing, they have music theory offerings, and so you're sort of learning about the behind the scenes of actually how music is put together, right? Yeah. The notes and how to write the notes and the keys and all that kind of stuff. So we don't have the infrastructure right now to provide a sort of long-term comprehensive music theory program. And so they also provide some of that instruction for us. So yeah, Boston Symphony and the New England Conservatory are sort of our two major partners currently.
And is it like an after-school program for the kids? How do you get the kids?
Yeah, so we operate primarily on Saturdays in person. The elements of the program involve private lessons, group lessons, chamber ensembles, those sort of smaller groups I was talking about earlier, and then sort of the orchestra and music theory portions. And so that's sort of like any classical musician who's a professional basically engages in all of those things throughout their entire career, educational career, sorry. So the private lessons actually happen a bit more kind of like I was mentioning earlier about it's sort of arranged mutually between the teacher and the family. And so sometimes it's at people's homes or sometimes it's at different facilities, and it's flexible. So we don't all have to be in the same space on Saturdays to have that happen. They arrange those on their own. On Saturdays, it's the chamber groups and those chamber ensembles and workshops and master classes and other special programs that happen all in person. So between like 8:30 and 3 p.m., we operate out of the basement of Symphony Hall in person, and we get to see all those families come in throughout the day. And that's also, then they also go across the street to the New England Conservatory to do orchestra and any of the other classes they need.
Have you seen any kids where you're like, oh my God, if this kid sticks with this, like you ever sit down with the parents and you're like, please, they need to stay with this no matter what they do because they have a special talent?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, so Project SIP is a college and career pathway program for students, underrepresented in classical music. And we're different than like your regular community music school because we hold everyone to those standards, right? Yeah. Not all of our students end up going into music professionally, but they meet those standards and they raise their own level and their own bar for what they can achieve musically, and they take that with them for the rest of their lives and become music lovers and play even if they don't end up being a professional musician. So. Yeah, all the time. In fact, we have a student right now who is going to be going to this national competition in a couple of weeks in Detroit. Sophia Hernandez Williams. She's 11 years old. Just unbelievable talent, and is extremely hard worker. And if you see her perform, I mean, you'd be shocked at how mature of a sound she has, and just the artistic sophistication that she has for someone that young is I've very rarely seen it. And a lot of times, like you see people playing instruments or doing things that like are prodigies, right? And the technical pieces of performing a lot of times can be easier to understand and digest for a young person. It's just like, oh, you put the finger here, put the finger there. Okay. So if they're really good at like understanding how to do that, they can play very virtuosically, but it's the artistic expression and the musical choices that a lot of times artists need life experience to be able to understand. Yeah. Right. Like, taking breaths here, like don't rush this. Right. Like if you were to, tell a 10-year-old to give a speech, you'd probably know. They'd be like, good morning, my name is Josue Gonzalez. Right. Yeah. But it takes experience and it takes time to understand how to weave a narrative and how to tell a story and the arc of the story. And so that's the artistic expression side that when you hear musician that's mature, that's what you're really, really, really getting inside of yourself. And she really has a lot of that already at that age. It's really cool.
See, because I know nothing about music. I wasn't in music. I mean, the music, whatever it was in school, the basic one, but I didn't play an instrument. Two of my older daughters play instruments, but I never like asked them about it. So I don't know what distinguishes. But the way you said it there, if you give somebody like to do a speech, it's like, yeah. So it would be the equivalent, like this girl grabbed a paper and she was just like, boom, my name's Sophia, boom, boom, boom. Like she knows how to craft a story versus the kid who's just reading the,
right,
what's off the paper.
Right. Like if you were to hear an audiobook
Yeah.
and someone just reading
Yeah.
versus understanding like this is the whole story. So I'm going to pace my breathing. I'm going to pace my volume. I'm going to, and understanding how to take you on that journey sonically.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay. So when it comes to the conductor, right? When you say he tells you what to do, I'll watch a conductor all day when I've seen orchestra stuff. And I don't know why, but I stay watching what they're doing, but I can never, because it doesn't seem like they're matching up to the notes. They might be. To me, it doesn't seem like they're matching up. It seems like sometimes, like, okay, I'll put a video on in my car, right? And I connect the auxiliary thing to it. And if it's someone talking, it's a little off from the actual audio. Like the audio's coming through and then you see the lips kind of following through. Or sometimes your TV will do that with a show where you're like, it's just not matching up. And that's what it seems like whenever I watch a conductor. So explain to me, like I'm 5, how what they do tells the orchestra what to do.
That's a great point, and it's a good question. It's not a 5-year-old question. It's a very, very, very good question. I think once you get to a certain level of professionalism, like the level, like a Boston Symphony or an LA Philharmonic or whatever, the job of the conductor kind of changes, right? And so you're not. Think about it like if you're a school teacher in kindergarten versus a college professor, right? In kindergarten, you really have to like spell things out so clearly and so repetitively and be so extremely direct and clear about every single thing you're telling them, because if not, they'll just, lose themselves. Whereas if you're a college professor in a lecture hall, you're just giving concepts. Mm-hmm. You're not expecting feedback immediately from the student. You're just telling them, hey, this is how to think of this thing. And here's this concept. I want you to think about that concept and what that means to you. And then, come back to me and write me a paper. So that's a little bit more of the analogy I would use, where it's like, if you're in a school orchestra class, the conductor is usually telling you like, here's the beat. And you have to be right with me. And here's the beat. Because they don't really know the music yet. They're learning the music. They're still learning about music in general. They've never played the piece before. They probably haven't practiced any of the music, and so they're learning it in the moment. Whereas for a professional orchestra, they're there because they would have prepared the music ahead of time. They know it backwards and forwards. They probably have already played the piece 100 times. Mm. The conductor doesn't need to tell them how to play the music in terms of like the technical side. So what the conductor does at that level is introduce ideas and concepts and interpretation. So every conductor has a different way of thinking about a piece of music. So you could hear 3 different conductors right now. So the Boston Symphony is doing a big run of all the Beethoven symphonies this month. This weekend, it's Beethoven's 1st through 3rd symphony. And their conductor is doing all the concerts. If you were to have a different conductor for each of those concerts, they would all sound different, because each conductor gets to imprint onto the orchestra their own philosophies and ideas of how the music should go. So some conductors be like, oh, this should be faster and this should be slower. We should take more time here, et cetera. So if that's the case, you have to think about I'm sorry I'm taking so long to explain this, but you have to think about the vastness of the orchestra. There's between 60 and 80 musicians on stage, right? There's a huge physical distance between you and the timpanist, which is all the way in the back of the stage, right? They don't need you to be a metronome because they can play the piece. Honestly, most orchestras at that level, if you just tell them to go, they'll just play the piece. And like, yeah, maybe there'll be, some ensemble issues here and there. Like they might not end exactly together, but whatever. But the conductor is really there to inspire and to create a vision. So in order to interpret that vision, if they make a gesture, the expectation is that there is a delay between the gesture and the orchestra responding to the gesture, because that way the orchestra actually has time to interpret what he's doing and then enact it. So the ensemble itself has like their own cohesion, and then they have a sort of a collective way of receiving that feedback. And so there is actually a lot of times a delay between like what they do and then what you end up hearing. So that was
no, because that makes because I always thought it would be like ba 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 bam ba ba, and it's never like that. So it's almost like he might be saying, hey, on this next note, hold it a little bit longer. And you're watching him as you're playing the lazy man's violin.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
That makes so, because I'll watch all the time and I'm like, this is not matching up.
Yeah. Well, and again, like think about like there's 80 different brains, and 80 different people, like eyes watching. So if we all have like a half a second to just see what he did, we'll all make sure that we're all together. But it's impossible to really have it right, like to have it be that precise. And sometimes it's actually has to be talked about as well. Like sometimes different conductors have like really big delays, and some others don't. And so
So will he single out a specific, like, let's say he wants the cello, and this next thing I want you to, I don't know any terminology, but like, will he single you out? How does he do that? Does he point to you specifically and give you a little hand motion, or?
Yeah, that would be more for the winds in brass and percussion, because a lot of their parts are individual. Whereas for string players, we play in sections.
Okay.
So for example, he'll say cellos. He just means the section itself. And he's like, hey, make sure that you drag this note a little bit longer into the next bar before we proceed. But then he'll be like, clarinet 2, you're a little flat on this note. Make sure that you're a little higher.
And clarinet's wind?
Clarinet's, it's a wind instrument. And so,
so wind is like clarinet,
flute, bassoon, French horn, and then there's all the brass, right? So it's trumpet, trombone, tuba. And then there's percussion. There's usually timpani and other auxiliary percussion instruments. So so he or she would single them out at that level as well, because everyone's professional. They try to like not be rude. They try to coax them in a positive way, because you also don't want to like make someone feel embarrassed in front of all of their colleagues. And so a lot of times be like, bassoons, let's try that one more time, and this time think about, and then they might give an analogy, and then they'll try it, and they'll be like, oh, bravo, great job.
People are people at the end of the day. Some people, it's like they need the positive reinforcement, massage my ego.
Exactly.
And other people, it's like, fix it or you're gone.
Exactly, right. And they're very highly unionized, so like that would not be possible anymore. I think back in the day, like early, like 100 years ago or so, or even 50 years ago, conductors had a much more notorious like temper. Like, this person just like shows up angry and just yells at this person and embarrasses them in front of everybody, and everyone just took it. And definitely much less the case now.
So how does one become a conductor?
That's a great question. I would say it's a similar pathway to what I think teachers end up going through. So it's sort of like an understanding of, hey, I like playing this instrument, but I feel like I could contribute better by like organizing a group of people and helping them achieve these bigger and better goals. And so I think philosophically, right, like that's kind of where they're coming from. But I've seen conductors basically come from all sorts of different instruments. I believe Anderson Nelson's from the BSO. He was a trumpet player. Conductors who are cellists, pianists. There are a lot of pianists who end up becoming conductors. It just kind of depends.
But you don't start off at like as 4 years old and they put a little wand in your hand.
They don't. No.
Tell your friends what to do.
It's interesting because you would think you'd want to cultivate that like sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
But I
guess
feel
it
like
makes sense.
conducting.
You need to actually like. You can't just tell someone to do something that you've never. It's almost like being a manager of a baseball team and you've never played a game in your life.
Exactly.
You got to have, played the game to be able to talk to someone about it. Yeah.
And some do, right? Like there's pianists who've become conductors and like they've never played any of those instruments before, right? And so,
but they've played an instrument.
They've played an instrument,
Yeah.
so there's definitely like a baseline level of like understanding.
Yeah.
But in my personal experience, like I think it's always helpful to have someone who's played one of those instruments and who's actually played in an orchestra, right?
Yeah.
To be able to relate a bit more and kind of provide that perspective that can be helpful. But again, at the Boston Symphony level, like they can put, and I mean, I'm sure you saw that video when Shaq was with the Boston Celtics.
No.
It was what 08, 09 or 09, maybe 09, 10, something like that.
And
when
he
Shaq
did the symphony orchestra.
So yeah, they had the Boston Pops had him, and Keith Lockhart brought him on, and he was like, okay, just conduct, and he was conducting.
Yeah.
But he was just waving his arms and just kind of looking silly, and then the orchestra was just. They were like, yeah, sure, we know how this piece goes, and they're playing perfectly, but he wasn't really doing anything.
Right. And so do the kids in Project Step, do they get a chance to play at all, like with the big professional orchestra people at any point, or like throw one kid in with just in case he kind of sucks to get drowned out a little bit? No, I mean like, but he's good enough to have the opportunity to play with the big boys.
Yes. Not yet with the Boston Symphony. We're in talks about how to put some programs together that hopefully could yield something like that. We've done some special programs like that. Like I think at the last spring gala for the Boston Symphony, we had a few of our students and alumni play alongside with Boston Symphony members, which is amazing. But we have other partnerships as well with other ensembles. A Far Cry is a string orchestra that's multi-Grammy nominated and Grammy-winning orchestra that we have a very great partnership with, and our students do play side by side with them at least once a year, which is super. It's incredible. We had a side by side. We had 3 students play with Emmanuel Music, which is a choral nonprofit that it resides at Emmanuel Church in Back Bay. And so and on and on and on. We have multiple partnerships like that, and because we understand the value of that, right? Being next to an adult who's just like doing things at a completely different level than you, and listening to them and seeing how they're approaching things, and they give feedback to student too, like, hey, maybe try this or maybe try that, and that level of inspiration is incalculable. You can't measure that. Yeah,
I think a lot of people, when they're pursuing whatever it is that they're passionate about, having a mentor type of relationship with somebody, it benefits in a million ways. One, because if it's a good relationship, they're not just going to be like, you're great. They're going to tell you the things you need to work on. But also, you seeing somebody apply consistently what you want to do makes it not seem like you're going through this wall. It kind of shows like, oh, there's a door to get to that other room, It's funny because my daughter's in ballet right now. She's 7. We know nothing about ballet. She literally wanted to get into ballet because she saw a TV show on Netflix about aliens learning ballet. And one day, yeah, alien TV. I'm not even joking. It's aliens doing human things and then talking about how weird humans are. So one day she comes to us and she goes, I want to try ballet. And my wife played like softball in college. She was really good and stuff like that. I played like T-ball in Little League, but I was more of that, what do they call it, latchkey kid. I was that growing up. So I really wasn't into sports or anything like that. But so we were both kind of like, and nobody else was ballet type in the family. So we were just like, where does she get this ballet idea from? Find out a couple months later, that's what it was. But we signed her up for a ballet. This was during COVID. So my wife's calling schools knowing nothing. She's like, I'll just call a couple ballet schools, see what the deal is. Nobody was returning her calls except for this one school. So we signed her up there, and that's where she started going. Fell in love with it. Turns out the school we signed her up for is a highly competitive, sought-after program where it's in Shrewsbury, and families, she only accepts, I think, 50 kids a year. She has a cutoff. Families will drive 90 minutes to an hour to go to drop their kid off to train at the school. We didn't know any of this. And they have a partnership. So they're part of a bigger program called the Royal Dance Academy, some big ballet school company. And they have a partnership with a ballet company. And so every year they'll audition kids in the school and then put them in the Nutcracker that plays at the Wang Theater with like the professional Russian, Ukrainian ballet dancers. Yeah.
Wow.
And so my daughter's in that, and she still loves it. Like she's doing a private on her own, 3 other group classes. Then she's in a flexibility. We're constantly dropping her off at the ballet. But part of it is doing that Nutcracker because now she's seeing the adults and how they conduct themselves before they go on stage, what they're doing when they go on stage, and and they get to interact with them.
Ask them questions.
Yeah, ask them questions. So seeing that at such a young age makes it easier to think, hey, if this is something I want to do, I can do it.
Right.
That's
Absolutely.
why I was asking if you guys did that.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. I mean, like think about yourself or like any situation you've been where if like a billionaire walked into the room and, you're just like chit-chatting, you stand a little straighter and be like, oh yeah, okay, cool. Like it's just a natural human thing, right? Where it's like you want to be able to level up with the people who are around you. It's instinctual.
Yeah, and it opens your eyes.
Yeah.
I'll tell my older kids when I have one, well, he's graduated college. I have one in college now, another one going into college. And I'll tell them, hey, whatever it is you want to major in, if it's something that you want to do, that's great. But that being said, open your eyes and try and pay attention to everything, because there could be something that you don't even know exists because it's just in your ecosystem of growing up. You were never exposed to it. You don't even know it exists. That could be the thing you fall in love with. Or it could be something that, yes, you knew it existed, but you're learning about it from a different perspective, which will make you go, wait a minute.
Right.
I didn't know this.
Right.
And want to pursue it. And I said, listen, and this is coming from a guy you need to understand who, 1, didn't go to college, but 2, outside of myself, I don't know many people, and now I don't know many people at the age of 17, 18 who knew what they wanted to do with their life, pursued it, loved it, and then are still loving it 20-something years later. For the most part, 17, 18, you're kind of like, I think I want to do this. Dad was this, so maybe I'll pursue that. Or you just grew up in a certain area where you saw a lot of things, so you're like, I'll try that. But for the most part, at that age, you really don't know. You don't have like a crazy passion.
Well, I think what you're doing with your kids is exactly what people need to be doing. Is just expose to as many things as possible.
Yeah.
Just put them out there because you never know. And there's very few opportunities in life where you get to do that, right? You can't do that as an adult because you got to, at that point you have to have a job and you're locked into a schedule and you're tired.
Yeah.
So your exposure is pretty limited, right? So like this is the time to really just open their horizons and have them see like what's out there. And then that is the best way, I would say, to like have them be able to weigh those options and weigh those decisions and weigh those pathways.
Yeah, that's now you got me wanting to put my kids to learn an instrument.
I did dance. I did dance when I was young too, and actually this schedules actually started conflicting once I got to like a certain age group in dance. It conflicted with our music classes, so I had to actually pick and choose. I loved being able to do both.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's another thing. Like, I think back in the day, I think people were much more about, well, you pick one thing and you do that really well. Nowadays, I feel like every single younger generation that comes up is more and more and more capable of doing whatever they want and as many things as they want at the levels that they want. Like I is even just in our program, like students who are just unbelievably unbelievable academic achievers and unbelievable musicians. I've known people who went to Harvard and were better at the violin than most of the people I went to school with, and they didn't study violin at Harvard. They just went to Harvard for biochemistry and were like neuroscientists. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
we put these limitations on ourselves, right? And so I think, again, at these young ages, like, that's the time to be like, you can do all of these things if you choose to. There's no, this is how it's done.
Right.
You know, like, you create that for yourself, and you create your own limits. So I think that's really important, and that's something that, like, I try to make sure we feed our students that mentality, because, you know, I there was tons of things I wish I could have done when I was growing up that, like, I was either told or I was in my own mind like, well, but I can't start this other thing if I'm still doing this thing. I'm not allowed to. I don't know. You know what I mean? Yeah. I don't know if that's true in your experience or.
It's with the kids now, it's tough because even my daughter, she's 7, and, you know, we had her in, well, she's in gymnastics still. She was in jiu-jitsu. She'll get back to it in the summer. Ballet. We had her try softball. We had her try tennis, soccer. And the big ones that she went back to was ballet and gymnastics. But even now, her teacher, you know, she hit us up. She's like, you should add in a private class. You should add in. So now it's like at a younger age, and my wife said this. She said she's getting into that age where, especially now, it's younger where whatever the thing the kid is doing, the activity, it demands more time.
Sure.
So be it a sport, you know, baseball used to be a spring sport. Well, now you could play it in the fall, in the winter, stuff like that. Or if it's something like gymnastics, we have a friend whose daughter, who's a gymnastics teacher, so she just always had her daughter at the school, and the daughter's big into it. But she explained to us, she goes, it's not just like my daughter. She's like, we have other kids here who, from when school gets out, they come here and they don't leave till like 10 o'clock at night. So they literally can't do anything else logistically. So I struggle with that because I'm like, I want her to try. So we do offer, we're always like, hey, do you still love this? Do you still love this? Because we're not going to say you have to stick with it. Right. Because again, you do want them to try as much as possible. But at the same time, she really loves it. And if she really loves it, I mean, I'm all like, go for it. Throw yourself into it. I mean, that's what I did with radio, and it worked out pretty well. So it's a weird.
Well, but if
weird struggle.
If you hadn't exposed her to all those things, like if gymnastics happened to be the one thing you didn't pick to have her in, like, where would she be right now? Like, maybe she'd still be kind of trying to search for like what that thing is, right? And so my point is, like, the fact that you were able to have all these different options, she's able to plug into one. And yeah, like, if she wants to decide to do that, like, great, you know, but like, you didn't limit the exposure. Yeah. You know what I mean? You were like, no, try all this stuff and, you know, stick with it for a while and, you know, really, really dig into it. But, you know, some kids, like, really, like you said, they find it sooner than others, for sure.
Yep. So if you weren't, even though you found this at a very early age, and who was your mentor? Like, did you get that at an early age, or was it later on?
Well, a private teacher is usually kind of like that mentor figure. So I had a private teacher, Fermin Segarra, in Puerto Rico. Wonderful teacher. He's still teaching today, but he was awesome. Yeah, he was like an uncle, basically. Nice. Really kind of had me in my formative childhood years. So I owe him a huge debt of gratitude. Just extremely generous, extremely kind human being.
It's crazy to think that you could be doing that right now, or you are doing that right now.
It is crazy.
There's some kid who's going to be like a superstar, and they're going to be like, Mr. Gonzalez really told me I could do it. Yeah. Told me to stick with it. But let's say for some reason, this wasn't what you were doing. What do you think you'd be doing?
I'd probably be doing some sort of either nonprofit or governmental work. I think the big picture in my own mind, and which is why I think I've gravitated to admin in the arts world, is maximizing the amount of help and the amount of impact that I can make for the large amount of people. Yeah. My dad worked. He just retired. But he worked for FEMA and the Red Cross for his entire career.
Oh, really?
and my mom was a nurse, and so
So just helping people was
all my dad's side of the family, they're all teachers and educators, and so for me, it's sort of ingrained genetically that like help others who need help.
Yeah.
Like invest yourself in the community and find where you can be useful to others. So I'd be doing something like that, probably again political or governmental or nonprofit of some sorts. So.
All right. Well, I think I've had you here. I know you got stuff to do. But wait, before we go, I got a couple random questions.
Yeah.
Favorite quote?
I have a few. I haven't committed my newer ones to memory because I've been reading a lot of books. But I mean, the quote that kind of put me on my life journey was, "Don't ask what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country."
Okay.
John
Any
Kennedy.
impactful events that shaped you as a child?
Impactful events.
I could name one right now. Oh,
Go ahead.
I think when your sister crapped out on that bicycle, you were
Yes. Yeah. That's an impactful event for sure. Yeah.
If you could time travel, are you going backwards or are you going forwards to the future? And where specifically? What would you like to see? You can only witness it. You can't impact anything. So if you go in the past, it's not you could be like, play this number to win the lottery. Like you could just witness the event, or in the future to see something. What would you do?
I'd probably, it sounds weird, but I'd try to go around like World War II era, just to kind of be a fly on the wall to like everything as it was happening in the moment, right? Like big events like that in the world get like, at a certain point, they just kind of get glorified and like, like polished and whatever. And like, just from the reading I've done, I'm just so curious to see like what it was in the moment.
You're like my wife. My wife is World War II / Holocaust obsessed. Anything having to do with it, any book, any documentary, she's all about it.
Yeah.
If you could just wake up tomorrow with a brand new skill and you could pick what the skill would be, what would it be?
Wow. That's a great question.
After talking to you, by the way, mine is playing an instrument.
That's great. I think mine would be, I don't know if it's a specific skill, but like math. I wish I was good at math.
How bad are you at math?
No, but it's just like, I don't know. I don't feel very confident in just like numbers and like being able to just kind of, boo, 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 boo,
Yeah.
And that's not where my strengths are. And like, that's not where my path has led me. But I wish I could just be like comfortable and good at math in general. Just, I guess for no reason, but just because I feel like I should be better at it. I don't know.
Are you satisfied where you are in life right now?
I am. But I think, again, I think any muscle that's not used atrophies. And so I'm at a point in my life where I don't think I'll ever be complacent in happy, yes, but not complacent, if that makes sense. Like not sort of resting on my laurels. Like I really recently arrived at this place where I understood in my job and just in jobs in general, like, oh, there's no plateau.
Yeah. Oh my God. I used to, when I was younger, I was like, whatever, fill in the name of let's say 30, when I was like, maybe like in my teens or something. I'm like, by 30, you pretty much know everything in life. And then you hit 30 and you're like, I don't know anything. It's got to be 40, right? You hit 4. I'm 48. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. But no, I completely understand what you're saying. It's just, you're just constantly, but that's what you want, to be constantly learning and growing. Otherwise, it turns into the opposite, which is atrophy.
Right.
You
right.
know?
You're either going up or you're going down. It's one of the, you have to pick a direction because there's no maintaining.
Life is momentum.
Yeah, exactly.
You're either going that way, get up and work out every day, or you're not, and all of a sudden you get a little chubby.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I wish. I'm glad you said that. It makes me feel better. But I feel like I've learned so much in the past 2 or 3 years in this job, and I feel like I know even less in some ways.
Yeah.
Or I know more of like, oh my gosh, I don't know about all this other stuff that I didn't even know existed, a year ago or 2 years ago. So,
but it's exciting. It's exciting in a way because there's just so much to learn. I used to always tell, interns or whatever, and I'll tell my kids, I said, you should every day learn something. And when you say that to someone, their eyes open like, what do you mean? I'm like, I don't mean anything profound. I'm not talking about learning a new language tomorrow. I'm talking about just every day you should just keep your eyes open. And it could be something as little as driving to work a different way. Just do something a little different. Oh, I got to work a little quicker this way, or just anything. Just keep your eyes open. It's learning something. But the chances of you learning something profound in one day are slim. But you can always still learn something. Read a book, read 10 pages, whatever it is, you know?
Yeah, the point is to develop the muscle, the learning muscle.
Exactly.
If that muscle is active, you'll always keep learning. Like no matter until you go to the grave, right? Like, but if you don't have that habit of learning, then you're not going to get anywhere. I feel like that's really one of the big things I learned during the pandemic was there's so much out there that it should be impossible for anyone to be bored.
100%.
Boredom should not exist.
100%.
To me, it seems impossible to be bored. I get stressed out of the amount of things I could and want to do in a day, and I have no ability to be able to achieve those things or do those things in one day. And so it's constantly like there's a million things I could do, and if I had the time, I would do it. But
100%.
So it's impossibly bored.
Like I'll get frustrated with my little kids because there are times they're like, oh, what am I gonna do? I'm bored, and I'm like, and I break down a list. I'm like, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. You have books, whatever. Or you know what? You have an imagination. You could just make up a game right now in your head. But I understand they're little kids. They're not thinking that deep. Like where you were saying about the pandemic, when people were like, oh, just chilling, relaxing. And I'm like, hold on a second. What were you doing that was so profound before everything shut down? Now you're taking a break from not doing anything. Now should be the opportunity for you to do something that you didn't get a chance to do before, maybe. Like what? Oh, I'm glad you asked. Well, when the pandemic hit, my wife came to me. She graduated law school in 2015. Didn't take the bar exam. She was like, I don't want to do this. I'm burnt out. And I was like, yeah, please, but take the bar just so you could have it. Just to, even if you're not going to use it, at least you know you have it. She decided not to do it. That was 2015. All of a sudden, the pandemic hits, and she sits down, and she was... Actually, let me take that back. It was right before the pandemic. It was the end of 2019. She sat down with me and said, I think I want to study for the bar exam. And I was like, let's do it. And we set a plan because our kids were really young. We were going to move into my parents' house, so my dad's retired. He could help watch the kids and everything, so she could study there. And then the pandemic hit, and we were like, this is actually kind of better. Now we have more less outside distraction stuff, less life getting in the way, so you can really buckle down and focus and do it. And from Memorial Day to Labor Day, we were at my parents' house. That's when she took the exam. And anyway, so she started at the law firm without actually having the results of her bar exam, because then I said, you know what, just start reaching out to people, anybody that we know. Just let them know that you took the bar exam. Get it in their ear. Reached out to the lawyer who helped me with the last couple of houses that I bought, and he already knew my wife, and he said, come in. Boom. Loved her. He said, I'm going to give you a job. You're not going to do any lawyer work. Obviously, you haven't gotten your results. When you get the results, if you pass, I'll make you a lawyer. If you don't, continue doing office work, retake the test until you passed. Anyway, so he hired her in November of 2020. She got the results in January. She passed. He hired her as an attorney. Anyway, this past November, which was 4 years to the day that he hired her, he made her a partner at her firm. So,
wow.
So long story. Let's wrap back to the beginning. How in the hell did people just sit on their ass and not do anything? Josue picked up books. It's like
I went from 0 to 25 books in a year. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and everyone was like, "Oh, there's nothing on Netflix. Tiger King is over. What am I gonna do?" Are you kidding me? People are atrophying their brain.
I took an online course. I mean, and sent me on this path to the job I have today.
So much.
Yeah, I was like, thank God I have the time now.
Learn an instrument. Anyway, thank you for coming in, Josue.
No,
this is great. Let them know about Project Step.
Yeah, Project Step, you can go to projectstep.org, look at some of our programming. We have a lot of public events and concerts coming up in the next several months. We have an awesome fundraiser that we're putting on at Grace by Nia in the Seaport on April 8th. So tickets will be going on sale soon, so please check those out. Any help in getting the word out about our program? We specifically try to empower Latino and Black youth in classical music, and so if you're interested, if you have a child that's a musician that wants to take things to the next level, feel free to reach out, and we'd love to talk.
Yeah, and parents. Some of you might be thinking, I'm not into classical music, therefore nothing. Shut up. I don't like ballet, and my daughter is all about, when you see your kid doing something that they love, whatever it is, you get excited about it.
Yeah.
So
the technique that your daughter's learning in ballet, and then the technique that people learn in classical music, like, translates directly to any other genre of music. You can, so it's worth it. It's not, you won't get pigeonholed. It gives you more access to other genres of music. So
yeah, they're like, no, I want my kid to be Lil Wayne. No.
They can, and they'll have all this incredible knowledge to how to produce the thing and how to add strings and
beautiful. Thank you, Josue.
Thank you.